A sailor sails into the endless ocean, shattering the boundaries of the known world. A people rise, fearless enough to challenge kings and topple thrones. And a single bullet plunges the entire world into 4 years of darkness and destruction. These 3 turning points, Columbus's discovery of America, the French Revolution, and the First World War, forever changed the course of human history. Each opened the door to a new era, bringing with it both progress and pain, enlightenment and tragedy. Christopher Columbus and the Discovery of America, 1492. The voyage that opened a new world. The year 1492 marks one of the most pivotal moments in world history. That year, Christopher Columbus, a Genoese navigator sailing under the Spanish crown, crossed the Atlantic Ocean and reached the American continent. His voyage was not merely the discovery of a new landmass. It represented Europe's first major contact with lands beyond Asia and Africa. The event triggered a global wave of political, economic, and cultural transformation. Background of the voyage. Columbus's true goal was to reach Asia by sailing westward. At the time, many believed the Earth was smaller than it truly is, so Columbus assumed he would reach India in just a few weeks. After years of rejection, Queen Isabella I and King Ferdinand II of Spain finally agreed to sponsor his expedition, providing him with 3 ships, the Santa Maria, Pinta, and Nina. In 1492, after a perilous 2-month journey, Columbus and his crew finally sighted land in what is now the Bahamas. The New World and its consequences. Believing he had reached Asia, Columbus called the inhabitants Indians, unaware he had stumbled upon an entirely new continent. His discovery opened the path for the Spanish Empire's vast expansion. Within decades, Spain established colonies throughout the Americas, extracting immense wealth in gold and silver. Europe's economy flourished, but for the indigenous peoples of the Americas, the discovery brought catastrophe. Enslavement, cultural destruction, and foreign diseases led to the deaths of millions, marking one of the greatest population collapses in human history. Impact on navigation and science. Though small and fragile by today's standards, Columbus's ships represented the peak of 15th-century maritime technology. Facing storms, hunger, and fear, Columbus's persistence turned a desperate voyage into a world-changing success. His discovery sparked a surge of scientific curiosity across Europe. Geography, astronomy, and natural sciences entered a new era. Crops like potatoes, corn, and tomatoes crossed the ocean, revolutionizing European diets and agriculture. Columbus's legacy and controversy. Columbus remains one of history's most debated figures. Some see him as a visionary explorer who reshaped the world, others as the harbinger of conquest and destruction. He made 3 more voyages to the Americas, but political turmoil and accusations of tyranny tarnished his reputation. At one point, he was even arrested and returned to Spain in chains. Today, Columbus Day is both celebrated and contested, increasingly reframed as a day of remembrance for indigenous peoples who suffered in the wake of European colonization. Columbus's voyage did not simply reveal a new world. It marked the birth of the modern age, one achieved at a terrible human cost. The French Revolution. Liberty, equality, and the power of the people. The French Revolution, 1789 to 1799, was not merely a national upheaval. It was a global turning point that transformed political systems, challenged monarchies, and laid the foundations of modern democracy. Its rallying cry, liberty, equality, fraternity, became a timeless symbol of the struggle for freedom and justice. Causes of the Revolution. By the late 17th century, France was on the brink of collapse. Economic crisis, social inequality, and political corruption had shattered public trust. French society was divided into three estates: the clergy, the nobility, and the commoners, known as the Third Estate. The privileged classes paid almost no taxes, leaving the burden entirely on the poor. Meanwhile, Enlightenment thinkers such as Montesquieu, Voltaire, and Rousseau spread ideas of liberty, equality, and popular sovereignty. France's costly support of the American Revolution deepened the financial crisis and fueled public resentment. The beginning of the Revolution. In 1789, King Louis XVI called the Estates General into session for the first time since 1614 to address the financial chaos. When the Third Estate was denied equal voting rights, its representatives broke away and declared themselves the National Assembly on June 17, 1789. Soon after, the streets of Paris erupted in revolt. The storming of the Bastille on July 14, 1789, became the defining symbol of the Revolution, the people's defiance against absolute monarchy. The Revolution advances. Feudal privileges were abolished, and on August 26, 1789, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen was issued, affirming liberty, equality, and property as fundamental human rights. When the king resisted these reforms, the people marched on Versailles in October 1789, forcing the royal family to return to Paris under public watch. The monarchy's days were numbered. New order and consequences. The National Assembly reorganized France into provinces and communes, confiscated church lands, and stripped the clergy of political power. When the king attempted to flee in 1791, trust was broken beyond repair. His execution in 1793 marked the end of monarchy and the beginning of the Reign of Terror, led by the Jacobins, a period of radical purges and mass executions. By 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte seized power, effectively ending the revolution but preserving its ideals. Legacy of the French Revolution. The Revolution heralded the dawn of the modern world. It dismantled feudal privilege, empowered citizens, and introduced the concepts of secularism and constitutional government. Its ideals spread across Europe and inspired countless movements for independence and democracy. Even today, the principles born in revolutionary France echo in the constitutions of nations around the world, a testament to the enduring power of freedom and equality. The outbreak of the First World War. One of the greatest global catastrophes in human history began on June 28, 1914, with a single gunshot in Sarajevo. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary and his wife, Sophie, by a Serbian nationalist set off a chain reaction among Europe's tangled alliances. By August, the world was at war, a conflict that would last 4 long years. Allied and Central Powers. The war was fought between two main alliances. Allied powers, led by Britain, France, Russia, and Serbia, later joined by Italy, Romania, Greece, Portugal, and the United States. Central Powers, formed by Germany and Austria-Hungary, later joined by the Ottoman Empire and Bulgaria. The Western Front became the symbol of the war, a grim line of trenches stretching 764 kilometers from the North Sea to Switzerland. Soldiers endured years of attrition, disease, and hopelessness. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, vast armies clashed in more mobile but equally devastating battles. New forms of warfare emerged: air combat, tanks, and submarines, forever changing the nature of conflict. The United States enters the war. Initially neutral, the United States entered the war in April 1917 after Germany resumed unrestricted submarine warfare. Under General John J. Pershing, American troops brought fresh energy and resources to the exhausted Allied forces, tipping the balance of power. The Russian Revolution and the Eastern Collapse. 1917 was a year of revolution. In Russia, years of hardship and hunger sparked the February Revolution, forcing Tsar Nicholas II to abdicate. Later that year, Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks seized power in the October Revolution, establishing the world's first communist state. Eager to end Russia's suffering, Lenin signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with Germany in March 1918, pulling Russia out of the war and allowing Germany to focus on the Western Front. The final phase and collapse. By 1918, Germany launched a final offensive toward Paris, but was stopped at the Second Battle of the Marne. The Allied Hundred Days offensive that followed shattered the Central Powers' defenses. One by one, Bulgaria, the Ottoman Empire, and Austria-Hungary surrendered. In Germany, naval mutinies erupted into revolution. Workers and soldiers formed councils across the country. Armistice and the end of war. On November 9, 1918, Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicated. 2 days later, in a railway carriage in the Campanian forest, German delegates met Marshal Ferdinand Foch and signed the armistice. At 11 a.m. on November 11, 1918, the guns fell silent. The Great War was over. Consequences and legacy. The First World War was one of the deadliest conflicts in history. 10 million soldiers and 13 million civilians perished. 21 million were wounded. France, Germany, and Russia suffered the heaviest losses. Cities lay in ruins, millions were displaced, and soon after the armistice, the Spanish flu pandemic claimed even more lives. New weapons, chemical gases, machine guns, tanks, and aircraft had changed warfare forever. The Great War did not just destroy empires, it destroyed the very idea of war as glory. Europe's borders were redrawn, new nations emerged, and the world stepped into a turbulent new century from which there would be no return.